This is Mr. Wolf, and we are continuing to read Chains by Laurie Halse. And we are on to chapter 23. Monday, July 15th, 1776. I also have been whipped many a time on my naked skin, and sometimes till the blood has run down over my waistband. But the greatest grief I then had was to see them whip my mother, and to hear her on her knees begging for mercy. Reverend David George on his childhood as a slave. A man pulled me by my rope outside to the courtyard. After 2 days in the dungeon, the noonday sun scalded my eyes. I stumbled, but did not fall. The man led me to the stocks, then untied my hands and pointed. I laid my head and hands in the crescents carved into the wood. He lowered the top-board, pinning me in place, and secured the 2 pieces together with a large padlock. A brazier filled with hot coals set on the ground a few lengths in front of me. A second man stuck 2 branding irons in the metal basket to heat them up. My knees turned to water. I sagged against the wood. "Stand up, girl, or you'll choke yourself," growled the man locked in the stocks to my left. I couldn't turn my head enough to see him, but his voice was rough and scarred. "Whatever you do, don't scream," he continued. "That's what they'll want to hear." I did not answer him, but forced my knees to hold me up. The wood locked around my neck was rough and splintering. My hands were soon without sensation, my neck and arms pricked 100-fold by pitchforks. 2 men were housed in the iron cage next to City Hall. One lay on the ground, asleep or dead. The second, his skin burned by the sun and peeling, and missing his left ear, stared back at me blankly. A court official, his coat covered with yellow dust, arrived with a man who wore a leather apron. He set to work, pumping a hand bellows to increase the heat under the branding irons. The bellows wheezed in and out while the sun rose higher in the sky. It had rained in the night. The mud puddles scattered around the yard gave off steam like a cauldron coming to boil. Sweat rolled off my face and fell in great drops to the dirt below. The wind shifted and blew the smoke from the brazier into our faces. I held my breath. In betwixt me and the brazier, dandelions grew in the mud. The man in the dusty coat pulled one of the branding irons out of the fire. He brought it close to his face and spit on it. The iron sizzled. My companion coughed and cursed the court officials and the judge who had sentenced him. A crowd had gathered a few lengths on the other side of the brazier, mostly soldiers and tradesmen, with a few women, one carrying a babe in her arms. I thought I saw a boy in a red hat, but when I blinked he was gone. Men in the front of the crowd called us names and jeered. The sunburned man in the cage yelled back, and soon the courtyard was filled with shouts and filthy language, the kind of words my mother never wanted me to say or hear. I fought against tears and lost. They fell to the dust in big drops too. If I cried a river, maybe I could swim away or slip under the water to freedom. The man in the dusty coat said something to the man in the leather apron. I could not hear him because of the noise of the crowd and the crackling coals and the beat of my heart in my ears. The men walked toward me. The dandelions were lemon yellow, with bright green leaves and thick stalks pointing at the sky. At home in Rhode Island, the corn was tall as Ruth now. The spring lambs would be too heavy to pick up. The new goat, he'd be running headfirst into every fence post. This was a good day to bleach the wool. The man with the iron apron pinned my head against the wood. He stank of charcoal. I tried to pull away, but my hands and head were locked fast. The splinters chewed on me. Dandelions grew in the mud. The glowing iron streaked in front of my face like a comet. The crowd roared. The man pushed the hot metal against my cheek. It hissed and bubbled. Smoke curled under my nose. They cooked me. The man stepped back and pulled the iron away. The fire in my face burned on and on, deep through my flesh, searing my soul. Stars exploded out of the top of my head, and all of my words and all of my memories followed them up to the sun, burning to ash that floated back and settled in the mud. A few people at the edge of the crowd had fallen silent. They walked away with their heads down. My mama and papa appeared from the shadows. They flew to me and wrapped their arms around me and cooled my face with their ghost tears. Night crept into my soul. And that is the end of chapter 23. Thank you for joining us, and I will see you again soon.